roughly the other half are still working on their projects. In terms of our fund balance, at the bottom there, you can see we started the year with a carryover of $277,000. We actually had an increase in allocation approved by the City Commission at their last meeting in the amount of $250,000. So that was added to the 2021 allocation line, which brought the total allocation this year to $375,000 for total available funding this year of $652,000. We have grant commitments of $381,000, which leaves us a unobligated fund balance of $270,000. And today I'll be presenting to you recommendations for roughly $170,000 worth of grants, which would leave us a balance of about $100,000. I will note that we anticipate a new allocation of funding into the fund as part of next year's budget process. So that's typically in place by January or February.
Any ideas what you're?
Go ahead, Paul.
Good. I was just wondering if you have a ballpark figure of that, if it's similar to years
I saw the
past.
preliminary budget that for November 1st, but that's a so high budget that I would hate to throw a number out there. I'm sure everybody has seen that first run through.
The allocation for next year will be tied to this year's admissions collections, but historically the number's been between $400,000 and $500,000 allocated to the fund. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're somewhere in that range next year.
That's the first pass mandatory November 1st budget that all municipalities have to adhere to. Paul, was it you? And again, help me. I left Kelly's Island just 3 hours ago. The $25,000 from marketing. What are we marketing? Didn't you ask that question at one point in time? I got some notes here. Okay. If my notes pop up.
We talked about, I think it was more at one point.
Yeah, but we talked about, yes, I think you're correct, it was more. What are we marketing? Help me understand that.
Yeah, that's general citywide marketing efforts, and I've been working with the finance director and expect that next year we're going to separate the two programs so that their budget is held in a separate fund, and we don't have to make that kind of notation here because those marketing efforts are now being led by our communications director. So they're really on a citywide basis,
okay,
not directly running through our department.
I would say, and I could be completely wrong here, but like initially it bothered me that it was in there, but then as I think where this money comes from was the emissions tax, that if we're marketing the city as a whole to attract more people that pay more admittance tax or emissions tax, then, it's kind of a roundabout way, but it gets us more money in the pot, but.
That works. Okay, does anybody have any questions about the
only question I had is on the Market Street Collective, the 2019 grant still. Where is that on an update? And I thought I read something in here, but I couldn't find it when I just sat down.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that during the discussion portion of the meeting today, and I'll have
just save it for that
full update on the project.
You're talking about the old Cardinal.
Yeah.
I think that's the discussion. Sandusky, Sandusky Food Hall vendor grants. That was the old Cardinal building.
Correct.
Right.
So, any other questions, Paul? In that case, I'm going to let you roll, and we'll do the first one is going to be, unless there's any reason we take them out of order, we're going to just go right down the line.
All right, our first application comes from Name One Yellowstone LLC. The committee members will recall that this project was previously presented to you, and it was recommended for approval in the amount of $50,000. However, that recommendation came right around when COVID was hitting our community, and the request was never presented to the City Commission. What we ended up doing was approving a grant in the amount of $10,000 to Name One Yellowstone LLC. They subsequently took the project on and started construction. So you may recall this is the multifamily building at the corner of Washington and Franklin, 333 East Washington Street. It's being renovated for transient occupancy, 9 units. Total investment is estimated at approximately $2 million. If you've been by there, you can really see the amazing job that the crews have been doing on that property. So given the improved financial condition of the city and the Economic Development Fund, we would like to go back to City Commission with the initial recommendation of a grant totaling $50,000. Just as a reminder, this committee already recommended a grant in that amount. So unless anyone has any concerns, I want to make sure you're aware that we do intend to go back to City Commission now that the fund has the capabilities to award a grant up to the amount of $50,000. Yes, please.
I'd entertain a recommendation that, from this committee, that goes back to the commission for their approval.
Is it 50 plus the 10, or is it
No,
the 10 goes away and turns into 50?
correct.
Okay.
So it'd be, 50 total.
I would make a recommendation to provide Name One Yellowstone LLC with a grant of $50,000 for a substantial redevelopment grant.
I would second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the next one.
Can I just ask one question?
I'm going to bring it up. The dairy frost, there's no samples here. How in the world can we approve it?
It's unreal, I agree. Hey, and can I go real quick on Name One Yellowstone? It says the project will be complete by 6/30/21 in the recommendation. Are they still, they're still working, aren't they, or is that?
Yes, they are.
Right.
Yeah, they're getting pretty close to completion, but we'll get a new completion date. Obviously, there were some delays because of COVID, so they weren't able to meet that initial completion date, but they're really close to being finished, and we'll get a new date set. All right, so 30 Below Investment Group LLC is a company that's owned by Piage Hunter. He's a Sandusky native. He goes by the name Pete. He purchased the longstanding Dairy Frost building on Cleveland Road over the summer, and he has reopened it and has continued to serve the neighborhood favorites that business has been known for, as well as adding some new items to his menu. He's also proposing some upgrades to the property, much needed improvements, including a new front window installation and a fire suppression upgrade. So the total investment that he's proposing is just over $4,600. I'd like to recommend that we make a Economic Development Fund grant in the amount of $2,000. The project is scheduled to be completed by summer of next year.
1,200, which one you want? It says Sandusky Economic Development Fund, 2,200. I'm looking, I just want to make sure that I'm reading the right thing. In other words, it says project sources, economic, blah, blah, blah. And I had nothing to drink, I promise. Sandusky Economic Development Fund was 2,200, then owner's equity was going to be 2,608.84 of the $4,000.
What page are you on now? Is it the cover page?
No, I'm on page, again, mine is in my iPad, so I'm not exactly sure. In other words, project uses, it says new window installation, fire suppression upgrade, then project sources, it says Sandusky Economic Development Fund, 2,000. Okay, never mind, I'm on the next one, it jumped already. You're right, 2,000.
Yes, yeah, the recommendation is for an award of $2,000 towards the total project cost of
All
$4,600.
I want to do is, now I want to definitely be able to see.
Brings us in right at about 40% of the total project cost. Overall, it's great to see this new owner rejuvenating this business, reopening it, and I'm hopeful that our modest contribution can help make him successful for years to come.
That's been a real staple. I mean, that's, Klein's and that one, I mean, are been around as long as you and I, Sharon.
No Dairy Queen on our side of town, the east side. This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I support this project. I think I'm surprised it's so cheap for new window installation and everything. That was, frankly.
My windows didn't go that.
Yeah,
They can get them within a year. But the only reason that I say that is we've had windows ordered, and I'm not going to mention from who, it doesn't matter, but we are now on 7 months waiting for the windows because of COVID. And I don't know, again, that was one of my comments I was going to bring up. Obviously, we want people getting projects done, but I think if we can show that they've been ordered and they've made the effort, we can't change that mess out in the West Coast with everything sitting there. Paul, did you make a motion for it?
Yes, I did. Yep.
I'll second.
Second. Discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Our next application comes from Sweet Potato Catering LLC. Sweet Potato Catering is owned by Katie Koropkin. You may recall Katie Koropkin is also the owner of 634 LLC, which is renovating the building at 634 Columbus Avenue as an event center. That project was approved for a grant in the amount of $15,000 toward a project of over $200,000 in total costs. But today, Katie is requesting a grant in the amount of $10,000 toward her renovation of the main location for Sweet Potato Catering, which is 1302 West Monroe Street. Her project includes the renovation of that building for production and office space. You may recall this was the former home of a Italian restaurant that operated out of this location. The upstairs was used as residential living space. Katie's plans call for renovating the first floor space for the production space for her culinary and catering company, and then the upstairs.
Demos?
Yes, the old demos.
Oh, the chicken parmesan there. Ooh.
Yeah, I am
Things are
really
back.
showing my age today. I might as well just give up.
I love that place.
The upstairs was previously used for residential. It's been completely gutted, and Katie's plans call for renovating that into office space for her growing business. She has, in addition to the items that were provided to you, just recently submitted some additional cost estimates for some of the work, as well as a rendering of the outside improvements of the building. And I'm happy to share those with you. The total project cost for her renovation of the project, of the property is just over $97,000. And the grant amount of $10,000 will assist her in completing this much-needed upgrade to this building and allow her to continue to grow her business. So I am recommending a grant in the amount of up to $10,000 to Sweet Potato Catering for the property at 1302 West Monroe Street.
Recommended the commission because it's $10,000 if we change that number.
Anything over $10,000 has to go to City Commission. So this
Over or
would
$10,000.
over $10,000. So $10,000 or below can be administratively approved.
I would make a motion to provide a grant to Sweet Potato Catering in the amount of $10,000.
Motion to grant the $10,000.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Jonathan, just a comment. I love the application she put together and the thoroughness. I think some people they struggle a little bit with some sections of this, I've noticed, particularly the payroll and the job creation chart.
Yes.
If people ever need help completing that, I'm sure between your office and ours, I'd really love to see us get more consistent in the presentation. It helps.
Thank you. I appreciate that offer for assistance. And Katie is very thorough, and she's been great to work with so far on both these projects. So thanks for pointing that out, Abby.
Makes it easier to go through them when it's.
All right, our next application comes from True Grit Fitness LLC, which does business here in Sandusky as WellFit RX. This company is owned by Dustin Smith. He's also born and raised here in Sandusky. Dustin has a really impressive background in the healthcare industry. He's the owner and operator of this company. It's basically a nutrition and wellness company. He's currently providing services to clients at the Tim Dorsey Fitness facility. And I'm really excited about his proposal here. What he'd like to do is rent the commercial space immediately adjacent to Tim Dorsey. It's currently being used only as storage. So Dustin would like to do some leasehold improvements to that space and have his own dedicated space so that he can serve his clients better and expand his business, also hire at least one new employee. He's estimated the total cost of leasehold improvements to be $12,210. This is pretty extensive work, including new flooring, doors, electrical work, a new drop ceiling, and then he has a modest amount, a little over $3,600 earmarked for equipment for the space. I'm recommending an Economic Development Fund grant in the amount of $5,000 towards the $12,000 project, so roughly 40% of the total project costs. Dustin's a true entrepreneur. He's growing his business, currently operating out of the Tim Dorsey space, but taking the next step here to lease his own space and grow his business. I will say that before we execute the grant agreement, we will require him to submit the signed lease agreement, which is currently being negotiated between him and his landlord. I've spoken with with the prospective landlord, and they're making some really good progress and anticipate having that executed before the end of the year. But we will require that he submit that before we finalize the grant. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I'm real excited about this project and hopeful that we're able to help Dustin make this a reality.
I actually am Dustin's lawyer, so I'll have to conflict out of this one.
Okay. So you can make the motion, I can second it, and you want to make the motion subject to the lease?
I will. I'll make a motion that we grant an Economic Development Fund grant to True Grit Fitness LLC in the amount of $5,000, subject to his provision of an executed lease for the space at 301 East Market Street.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
All right, thank you. Our next application comes from Everwild Spirits LLC. Everwild Spirits is owned by Rick and Gia Lynch. They have undertaken the renovation of the property at 212 Hancock Street. And if you've had a chance to go by there, you can see what a big project this is. They've pretty much completely gutted the building and are in the process of transforming this into a craft bourbon distillery. This will be the first craft bourbon distillery in Sandusky and Erie County in quite some time. And it's also going to bring Sandusky into the craft distillery tourism market, which is, from what I hear, a really growing craze. Their total renovation costs, including fees and equipment, are just over $2.3 million. This is a really major undertaking and huge investment that they're making here in the city. They anticipate being able to distill up to 70 barrels of whiskey in their first year of operation. They anticipate completing the project by the end of next year. I'll note that they have been awarded an enterprise zone tax abatement for 75% tax abatement for 10 years. But we'd like to further assist this really remarkable project with an Economic Development Fund grant in the amount of $100,000 to support the Everwild Spirits project on Hancock.
I think this is a really good project for downtown. It's going to bring some people downtown. It should add some employees, increase the tax base. Actually,
All the breweries we have, the wineries, it's kind of interesting to see.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm a wine drinker, but that's neither here nor that, but is that recommendation?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I almost feel like we're light in what we're providing, but if that's all they're asking for, then
Yeah.
it is what it is. So I would make a motion to provide them 100,000 to Everwild Spirits LLC.
I'll second.
Second. Discussion?
I would just echo that I think this is a really exciting project, and one of the things that's probably not widely well known is they are also doing the production within Erie County, so they have multiple facilities here, the whole circuit of the business. And second, I'd add, we've done some features of them on just our media platforms, and they are blowing everything up. The community is so excited about this project. I probably get the most questions about this and Chick-fil-A in the last 2 years.
And I'll just mention, obviously, this will require approval by the city commission.
So obviously, we're recommending to the city commission for,
Correct.
and you made that motion, Paul?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend to the city commission for the money that they're putting a lot of throwing equity in there. That's kind of like.
I didn't see a
Well,
bank.
I like seeing that.
I didn't see a bank in there either. I felt like it was
I'm sorry?
there's no bank involved either. I mean, it's,
Opportunity.
It says owner equity and bank financing. Project sources?
I think it names a trust.
Pardon?
I think it names a trust in there somewhere.
I think they're using an opportunity fund, correct, Jonathan?
Yeah, they provided us with some financial documents I did not include in your packet, but actually, there's a very substantial personal investment being made
Yeah.
by these individuals. So it's really great to see their
great.
level of confidence in the city.
Yeah, they-
Rick's background is in software and did well on a project and pursuing a passion now. I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
So we've got a motion to recommend to the commission for the $100,000. Any other further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I also enjoyed Gia's title of Chief Flavor Officer.
Have you seen their vans around town?
Yeah,
They're just quality branding.
yeah.
Wins me over every time.
All right, our last application today comes from Hampton Enterprises Llc, which is owned by Jamarcus Hampton. Jamarcus is not only a member of this committee, but he's a local entrepreneur. He owns the building at 420 Warren Street. This is a long-standing neighborhood hair care beauty salon. This property was actually operated by Jamarcus's grandmother for many years, and he was able to acquire it and now seeks to do a comprehensive renovation of the building, which is much needed for that property. He's basically going to convert this building into a more modern approach by creating salon suites, which will be spaces within the building that can be leased out by independent hairstylists. This is a really great way to create jobs in the neighborhood and also meet the community needs. His total renovation costs are estimated at $50,000. That's going to consist of intensive roofing, framing, and interior renovations, new windows, plumbing and HVAC upgrades, and then finishes for the facility and the salon suites. I'm recommending an Economic Development Fund grant in the amount of $20,000 towards this project. Jamarcus does have the owner equity and is finalizing the bank financing for the project. I'll mention that we're in the process of finalizing plans to do a rebuild of Warren Street, which I believe will be underway next year. So there's going to be some major public improvements going on in this area. Really seeing the neighborhood hair care beauty salon renovated and refreshed is going to fit really nicely with the public improvements that we're doing in that particular neighborhood. So I'm excited about this project, and I'm excited for Jamarcus to be able to reposition this long-standing facility for many more years of use in the neighborhood.
So I've talked to Jamarcus about financing, so I would say that I have a conflict in voting on this.
Have you done any financing yet?
Have not done any financing.
I'd rather you should say you have a conflict, but I mean, to me, I think until, in my opinion, and I'd let legal counsel make that decision, as long as we have not, I mean, you talk to a lot of people about possible
Yeah.
financing, but have you? has he
So in
made
terms
any-
of an application process, we deem that once we receive financials that they've applied. So I would say that we're.
Okay, then you've answered the question.
Yeah.
I mean, just to come up and talk to you, I think is.
Yeah, no, I don't. I wouldn't deem that as, no.
Okay, so that's gonna have to go to the commission, so I would take a motion to recommend this to the $20,000 to the commission.
So moved.
Seconded? Discussion, not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, it's just like an old shoe or old penny or whatever adage you wanna use. The Sandusky Food Hall just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back, and
It does, and I'm wanting to raise this as part of our discussion today, and I'm open to the feedback from the committee members here, but we've been approached by the developers of the Sandusky Food Hall about an opportunity to help them attract vendors to that location. So just in terms of background, the Sandusky Food Hall is the major renovation of the former Cardinal grocery store on Washington Street. It was previously approved for an Economic Development Fund grant of $139,000 towards this renovation. There is a strong indication that the renovation will be starting soon. The company did submit their construction plans to the building department and permit applications, so the reviews of those are being finalized and should be approved soon. And Sandusky Food Hall has begun to accept applications for vendors at this location. The current plans call for 6 food hall vendors at the food hall. Each vendor will essentially lease a space in the food hall where they'll be able to sell their own products. This does require a fairly significant upfront cost to the food hall vendors, roughly between $50,000 and $60,000. These are for things like their deposits, their inventory, startup labor, marketing, and signage. The food hall developer has a goal of attracting 50% of the vendors from the minority or underrepresented communities. And one of the ways that we think we could really help them attract vendors, particularly underrepresented vendors, is to offer grants to each of the vendors. So what I'm suggesting to you today and open to your feedback on is that we earmark up to $60,000 of our current allocation to be able to award 6 grants of up to $10,000 each per food hall vendor. I'm happy to bring those back to this committee, or if there's a level of comfort with this particular arrangement, we could also consider approving those administratively to streamline the process. But, in conclusion, this is really an exciting project. It's going to bring a modern grocery store to the downtown area. That's something that we hear a lot that's needed. The project is, I think, at a really critical stage where, as it's about to get underway, it's also in the process of attracting vendors, and I think our assistance in the form of modest grants made directly to the vendors and not to the developer can really help make this project successful. I'll point out that the initial lease for the vendors is 18 months, so any grant that would be provided would only be provided and finalized upon the provision of an executed lease by the vendor. So any feedback that the committee would like to provide would really be appreciated.
We're gonna drop that date to December 31st, 22, because this is one we've, seems to bounce back, and they are totally understanding that that's it.
Yes, yeah, I discussed that timeline. This is not intended to be an open-ended commitment. We want to see all vendors in place and operating by the end of next year in order to be able to access our funds.
I will say I'm not in favor for several reasons. One, we're saying we're offering $60,000 out to people that may or may not even exist at this point. So to me, I would rather, when I see a building over there and I know who it is and what their plan is, bring it in then. And the reason I also say that is, it could be somebody that you do accounting work and I do legal work for, but we've already pre-voted to give them the money, and then we're, you know what I mean? So
I think just because of the project itself, the way it's going, I think just to protect everybody, and again, not that I don't trust you and administration in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, I trust
but
Jonathan.
Pardon?
I trust Jonathan,
Well, hey,
on the record.
okay, but I mean, I think it just, I agree with Paul.
And I would just like to see some progress over there, because if somebody comes in next week and they have 45 employees and they can move an operation out of town and we're out of money because we're waiting on somebody who might come over there, I'd rather it bricks and dirt are moving and here comes the money than, you
I
know.
agree with that, Paul. It's not that we don't want to do it, it's, I think it's better off for everybody if we do it the way that
Yeah,
Paul's
I
recommending.
would say it's not that we don't want to do it, we don't want to do it now.
I think that's really valuable feedback, and those are all really great points. And I'll be happy to take that back to the company and continue to work with them. And I do think that the fact that we're still open to accepting applications from vendors as they come forward is still a powerful tool for the developer to market the program. And we'll continue to work with individual vendors as they come forward. And if there is a proposal that.
I totally understand what you're saying. If I'm them, I'm handing them this application when we're talking to them and saying, hey, we've discussed it, you know, I would apply. But, you know, because we don't know if all 6 vendors will be different. One might create 3 jobs, one might not create any jobs, you know, so I don't like the blanket approach either, but, you know, I think I'm glad that you brought it in for discussion.
Since there's no longer such a crunch of available funds they could market that with a little bit more certainty that this is a resource that's going to be there for you. There's still funds this year and it's going to be reallocated in 2021.
That's a really good point. I'll also mention, admittedly, taking this approach, I think, lets us be a little more strategic in terms of targeting the assistance, perhaps to help them meet their disadvantaged business goals, which is a really important piece of that project that we're excited about, seeing this as an opportunity to diversify the businesses that we have in our downtown area. So,
That's a good point.
you know, we can work with the developer on that front as well.
Jonathan, do you think that next year we'll go back to the pots of funds where one's targeting small businesses and one's more facade and facility improvement based?
I'm really open to the committee's thoughts on this. I think that the current structure has been a little bit perhaps easier to administer from the staff level. We've, I think, tried to maintain roughly the same types of allocations that the city had been making previously in terms of dollar amounts towards different parts of the project. But from a general marketing and in terms of explaining the program to businesses, I think it's a little bit easier to explain it as a single economic development fund, but I'm definitely open to the feedback of the committee.
I only bring it up in this conversation because I do think there's potentially a cost barrier to participate in the food hall. I also won't be surprised if the presented costs to us as a committee are more of the soft variety than physical improvements. Other than, I think there'll be equipment costs, but the matching funds, I'm guessing, will be towards the lease and the sign up. And so will we be comfortable with that? And before, in the small business bucket, I could be misremembering, but it felt like there was more flexibility to get to the 10,000 support level than if we are doing hard costs and physical improvements as a target.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Abby. And what I would point out is that the approach to the food hall is really for it to serve as an incubator. So in many cases, these are going to be very early stage companies that are taking the first step, say, out of their kitchen into an outside space. And the goal isn't for them to stay at the food hall forever. It's for them to get established and then move into another commercial space within our downtown or elsewhere within the city. So these are going to most likely, and in most cases, be very early stage companies, which means that more of the costs probably are going to be soft costs rather than hard construction costs. But that's another thing that we can review on a case-by-case basis here at the committee. Well, I really appreciate that feedback, and we will continue to work with the developer. And if there are projects that seem to fit within our guidelines on a case-by-case basis at the food hall, we'll bring those to you. So appreciate your time and your feedback on that. It is an exciting project, and we want to see it be successful. So thank you for your time on that.
Any other discussions from the committee members before I open it up to the floor? That's you.
I have about
I didn't
four.
mean that you were the floor, but I meant else.
That's all right. I have four things here. On this food court thing, I'm a little concerned when I read this. It says the company's goal is for 50% of vendor stalls to be majority owned by underrepresented groups, women and minority enterprise, and LGBTQ. It's a form of discrimination there. For them to specify. That's just my thoughts, especially with taxpayer dollars. It's all open. It's all open to everyone. He's trying to say 50%. He's going to allocate that 50% of vendor stalls. I don't think he can do that. I think you better check with the attorney on that. It's something that you need to think about on that.
I think,
Before
Sharon,
you
that's
make that
why,
agreement.
And I think Paul's had a very good comment, that we would look at things as they come in, to make sure that everything's done in the proper way. And
Well,
I
it just
agree.
doesn't, it makes it look like it's not going to be all around fair, you know? I mean, it's open to everybody.
Yeah.
He didn't have to specify this. I'm very concerned about that. So that's just something that you'll have to fly that by the attorney before you make that agreement. Now, on this other one, this Everwild Spirits, 100,000. I couldn't understand what you were saying, but it looks like he's got some financing to do on a little over $2 million, and there's no bank mentioned here.
Yeah, I would say, I probably messed those comments up. I didn't see a bank, but I don't know where their money's coming from. I was just saying what I meant to say is, it's a $2.3 million project, and we're giving them less than 5%, which is a little light for this committee generally. So it was really meant as a compliment to them to put so much money in.
And we'd always verified that they do have that commitment of the two, whatever it is.
I think the banks should be put on here, who they're dealing with. We shouldn't be rubber stamping this without knowing that there's financing in place here. And
Sharon, I don't think they're working with the bank.
Pardon?
I don't think they're working with the bank.
They have private investors?
It's personal equity. They sold a company and they put it in an opportunity fund.
Okay.
And
It's good. Not
Okay.
great for Paul, but it's,
Yeah, well, the bank.
But when you say opportunity funds, is that private investors?
yeah, not,
No.
it's an investment tool that you would use as a investor yourself. So you put your
There's tax
money in it.
advantages to doing it that way.
Yeah.
Are they local? Are they local?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They live in here.
Opportunity fund is local investors?
Oh, no.
Okay.
It is locally designated areas, so the downtown is all eligible. As you might have heard, the opportunity zones being publicized. They're an economic development tool.
When I think what you're saying is an opportunity fund, a bunch of people that are throwing money in, and it's not that. It's these people's individual money being held essentially in an entity so that it can have some tax advantages. I don't know
Okay,
if that properly says
Okay.
it,
But it's funded by the individuals themselves.
yeah, it's not like there's 50 investors behind the scenes funding them. It's,
well, I guess my whole object of this, knowing who the bank is up front, is because of conflicts of interest. We should know up front before we give approval here, who they're dealing with, what banks they're dealing with. And some of this will go to the commission too. So,
Are they dealing with the bank at all?
They do list in their application and have submitted paperwork that indicate that they have a line of credit of up to $3 million with Truist Bank, which I don't know off the top of my head where they're located.
The Noble Bank out there. It's
But-
one of those ones that's in the stratosphere.
well, that's nice to know they got 3 million. I'm just saying, if it's somebody else here and they have a line of credit, 3 million, with what bank? You know, I
Well,
need,
not that I'm sure, I think what you're saying is you want to make sure if we give them money, they have enough money to do the project, not just say we have $2 million. So the way that we kind of get around that is we don't give them any money until the project's done. And then when it's done, they give us the bills and then we pay it back.
I know, but let's just say he didn't have an opportunity program going, and he said he wanted
Sure, he
it
answered your question of who it was.
with a local bank here.
No, it doesn't, nothing about local. He answered who the financial institution was. He answered the question. Would you just, again, indicate who they've got the line of credit with?
Truist Bank.
What is it?
Truist Bank.
Okay, thank you, that's all I wanted to know. Okay, now, sweet potato catering, this was something Mr. Cook voted on, and there was some indication that maybe Savista Bank is involved in this loan?
Yeah, so I saw that, Sharon, and when Justin Harris was the law director, he indicated that as long as I'm not involved directly with it, and frankly, I didn't even know that she was involved with Savista. I don't know if she's gotten money or anything from Savista, but as long as I don't have a direct conflict with them with my work at Savista, that's what he indicated at the time, that it wasn't a
Are you
conflict.
not a commercial lender at
I am.
Savista?
I am.
Okay.
We've
Do
got-
they have more
we've
than
got
one?
25 of them.
32, actually, yeah.
Well, excuse
okay.
me, I just, Chuck would yell at me.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you're
there's a
still
lot of us.
associated with the bank. It's an association. You're still associated. I mean, the bank, through your vote, they get the loan, right?
He does not know.
No, I don't have any, I have no votes whether she gets money from the bank or not. I don't have anything to do with her
Okay,
and her
but
credit request.
she is going through Savista, right?
I don't know. She mentions that Rich, she's worked with Rich as a reference, I think is what she has in there.
So we don't know which bank, right? No bank. So we just approved a grant with no bank on
Right.
this?
I guess I'm not really sure where they bank. I guess I don't understand the importance of where they bank. In terms of like, unless you're
She-
concerned that they don't have the money.
She
for
is
the project.
taking out a loan, correct, for this?
Hers
Is she
is
taking
listed
out a
as
loan?
owner equity for her source. So that would imply that it's not commercial lending.
Correct. She's provided unaudited financial statements for the business that indicate sufficient cash at 3 banks. These were not provided to the committee, so we've not been distributing proof of funds and proof of financing for confidentiality reasons. We can certainly make those available if folks think that they should be, but in terms of sweet potato catering, her unaudited financing, her unaudited financing account statements indicate that she's got sufficient cash on hand at three banks, one of them being Savista, in order to fund this project through owner's equity.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. I don't have to get really personal. I know some of this is confidential. I'm just wondering, are they dealing with a loan and what bank? That's all. Okay?
And I think that you verify that and we're giving the money afterwards. So if they go through the process, I'll pick on Civista Bank, okay, today. If they go through the process and we're at 3.25%, and all of a sudden Vacation Life Credit Union comes in and says, hey, we're gonna do this for 2.75. I mean, who knows who's gonna be the final bank? It's just a matter of, they're gonna come up with bank financing, and they're gonna do it and bid it out to the best financial institution.
I just noticed on a lot of these loans that are coupled up with the grants, it's always Civista Bank, most of it. And I'm wondering why other banks, have you notified other banks, maybe they can make offers to help these people also on loans and not just stick with
I don't consider
Civista?
that a valid question for this. I mean, they can go wherever they want to go. I mean, there's no steering towards Civista Bank or anything else. This is strictly the individuals.
Yeah, and I would follow it up with Civista Bank's 60% of the area, so you get a lot of overlap there, but I don't think that there's any inclusion or exclusion based on who you bank with, whether you can participate in the program. I think we're inclusive of everybody.
Correct.
I mean, for other banks to stay competitive in the area here. I mean, I never see Fifth Third Bank or any other kind of bank. It's always Civista.
Well, Yellowstone today was at Erie Bank. I don't know if you noticed that, but
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't matter. There's no relevance to your question. Who cares who they go to?
I care because we have a sitting city commissioner who is a board member of Civista,
Okay.
all right? And he has shares of Civista, okay? He needs to know what bank it is so he knows whether or not he has to abstain or not. Now, if he knows after the fact, if you're going to withhold that information from him, and then you hold that up at the back end of this, where does that leave him? He's already voted on this thing. He's in the dark on which bank
I do
they're supposed to be
believe that
banking with.
You indicate who the bank is.
Yeah, if we see any potential for a conflict of interest, we'll let the appropriate individuals know and they can determine the best course of action. But to the chairman's point, we're happy to participate with a business that's working with any bank that's providing reasonable financing. It's very much a very open program that is looking to get deals done here in the city, regardless of who people are banking with.
Because, I mean, if I was, as a courtesy, I'd want the city to give me a heads up if Civista was banking with any of these grants that I'm passing. That's no more than fair.
I think Mr. Murray has been is given a heads up if it is going to be Civista.
Okay, thank you. And this other one here, the last one, is this Yellowstone. This is just, what, part 2 of their remodeling they're doing? They're just coming up for part 2 of another grant for the same building, right?
This is the same project that they initially applied for. The committee recommended that they be awarded a grant of $50,000. Unfortunately, because of the city's financial situation, we were not able to take that recommendation to City Commission, and we instead, as a staff, offered Yellowstone a grant of $10,000. They proceeded with the same project that they initially planned. They're now at the very tail end of that. They're seeing that they, in fact, made a contribution or an investment larger than they initially anticipated. The project is really turning out very spectacular, and what we'd like to do is go back to City Commission with that initial recommendation for an award of $50,000 now that the city's financial position has improved and can sustain a grant in that amount.
Okay, but the first time they applied for $10,000 and now this time it's $50,000? No, it's just $50,000 all the way around?
It'll be a total of $50,000. I don't know how much they initially requested. I know that this body recommended a grant of $50,000 initially because of the city's financial condition. During COVID, we weren't able to make that grant, but we would like to now go before City Commission, and that's what we'll do.
Okay, because I thought this had passed the city commission the first time around. This didn't pass then?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Oh, okay. I thought it passed the first time around. Okay, so my question is the same thing, is what are they doing for the banking? Do they have financing in order here?
Yeah, it says, well, it lists Erie Bank in their application.
Pardon?
It lists Erie Bank in their application.
Erie Bank, okay. Okay, that's all I got then. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Anything else? If not, thank you everybody for coming, and we will not see anybody else until 22. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And just since this is our last meeting of the year, thank you for all of your service and assistance of myself and my staff as we've tried to carry on the program, even though we've been short-staffed. It really is a great program. I'm really proud of the businesses we've helped, the impact we're having out in the community. I am working with the communications manager and would like to, at some point, do a nice video or some kind of piece to feature the businesses that we've been able to help. There really are some great stories out there in the community. We have to get the word out. So thank you all for your work and assistance throughout the year.
There's a really nice program on Facebook, Elevating Erie, going on right now. If you haven't seen that, it's a neat little piece.
It's all the rage.
With a follow-up too, I think you guys have done a great job as a staff, getting us all the information this year and having the packets and everything. And of course, keeping Al in line is a full-time job, so you guys are doing very well with that.
Hey, somebody's got to do it. If you got to do something, do it right.
That's right.
Meeting adjourned.